Okay, everyone. Not sure what happened there, but the stream blew out. So, going to record this, and this will be put up as the recap for tonight. So, to begin with, this week there'll be a couple more videos that will come out. One's going to talk about what F means. So, when you see an F/2.5, F/2.8, F/1.2. What does that mean on a lens? The other is going to talk about a related topic, which is DOF, or depth of field. So those will be the topics that will come out for a couple of small, short videos this week. And I'm doing landscape shots of the trees changing. And that'll be a much more in-depth retouch that we'll do next Friday. The reason for that is it's been rainy and kind of dark around me the last few days. There should be some sun this weekend, but because of the weather this year, the colors on the trees are more muted than usual, and it's not as widespread. So part of a tree may have changed, the rest of it's still green. So we'll see what we get, and we'll make some modifications to it with Lightroom. But let's get to a couple that we've got in here. All these pictures have a little fold down the bottom. These are virtual copies. A virtual copy basically means I keep the original image, and this file contains the changes that I made to the image, so it reapplies those changes. And then it's nice enough to keep a copy of it so that we can see a little thumbnail of the changes that were made. But let's take a look here at one of these images. Now, when you're not shooting raw, your camera or your phone, whatever you're using, creates a JPEG, which makes modifications to it that it thinks are best. Now, this image has two issues to it. The first is there's this line right here that I couldn't cross. So this was as close as I could get to the subjects. The other is I only had a 105mm lens, so this was as good as I could get. But what we can do in here is we can say, we'll crop the image. Now, the advantage to having a large megapixel camera, in this case it was a 45 megapixel camera, is there's a lot of data there, and I can crop in and I can see people. Could actually go even further. If I pull this up and make the change so that they're right about centered, and lo and behold, you can see them. And I could even go closer in if I wanted to. That's how much detail is in this picture. Now I want you to take a look at the numbers up here. 3898 by 2599. So if you had a magnifying glass, you can see this picture is made up of a bunch of dots, 3,898 of them this way and 2,599 of them that way. That is the cropped image. Now, what the cropping actually comes to mean in reality is this will look great on a phone. Phone's a tiny little itty bitty screen. I love to make wall art. Wall art to me could be a 30 by 40. Now, to give you perspective, if you're doing a high quality print, you're going to want at least 200 dots per every inch. So if you're doing 40 inches wide, you'd want it to be about 8,000 dots on that thing. to get the highest quality you could out of the image. This couldn't go that big, but you could go for a lesser quality, or it wouldn't be noticeable on a canvas, for example, because of the texture. Well, let's start working on the image. Now, there's several things that are called presets, and the ones I'm going to be using today are from Frono's Photo. He has several interesting presets. Now, a preset is kind of like getting a JPEG out of your camera. This one's called Skittles, and it's designed to enhance the image, which it does. I use it as a starting point. It means there's a little less for me to have to do going forward. But there's still a couple little tweaks that I make because it's my photo, and I have a different style than these presets have. Now, when you go to the movies, you'll notice that cinema shots have this kind of bluish, yellowish offset to it that I've enhanced quite a bit on here. But if we turn it on and off, and I pull in tight, you'll notice that there's a little bit of a blue tint and a little bit of a yellow tint. The brighter has more of a yellow, and the shadows go more toward the blue. I won't go into a great detail about the offsets like that. On a color wheel, blue and yellow are opposites. So it balances out the images. But it gives it that more cinema feel like you would see at a movie. Now, if I back the image back out to where it was, now you have a more cinematic view of these reenactors going into the redoubt. And that's the image that we started with. And there's where we are. Now, what I like about having a bunch of virtual images, these virtual copies, is it allows me to play with an image once, twice, 3 times, 5 times, and see which one I like best. For example, this image up here, I cropped and made black and white to see whether I liked it or not. Maybe I'll keep it, maybe I won't. If I don't keep it, no big deal. I just hit delete and it goes away. And it's not a full copy of the image, so it doesn't take up as much space. You can see in the highlight that this was shot at 82 millimeters. There's my f4 to 7.1 lens. And again, like I said, we'll talk about that this week. But if we look at this picture over here, you'll notice up here that it's 8,192 by 5,461. It's a 45 megapixel shot. So it allows me to get very close in and still have a lot of detail. Now, if you know reenactors, they take great pride in their outfits. A lot of them will make them themselves, or they will have somebody who meticulously adds detail to make them as authentic as possible. Now, just as a bodybuilder spends a lot of time getting that tone, that definition, making sure that their bodies have all that detail showing, I like to make sure that all of the work that went into these outfits and into what these guys do is captured and highlighted and shown in its best light. Both bodybuilders and reenactors have several things in common. One of which is the fact that they are dedicated to what they're doing. If we go back here, what's actually going on is they're drilling. They're going over and over and over how to march, how to keep in step. Some of these reenactors have worked together before, some haven't. So just as a military unit would have to drill to make sure that they got everything done in the way it was supposed to be done, didn't shoot each other, they stayed in lockstep, they formed up properly so that they could handle what was coming at them. These reenactors do that as well. It's just like doing a routine at the gym. The difference being when you do a routine at the gym, you have to mix it up to make your muscles grow. Here, it's the opposite. You want to be able to do the exact same thing the exact same way over and over again. So when it comes to the pictures, once you've got the image itself, and again, this was set so that I could get a lot of background in here, you'll notice some certain things that come up that can be fixed later on, which is like how washed out this is while these guys are in shade. It's very hard to balance out everything when you've got both bright sunlight and shade, but there are ways of enhancing the image through things called like masking and things, so that I could actually tone it down so that this part over here would look good, and yet these guys wouldn't be in so much darkness. And then it comes down to just a how much of an effect do you want to have? So let's get rid of this. Add a gradient. Let's see if I've got that the right way around. Nope, I reversed it. I thought I was going to do that. Okay, now you'll notice that by making this change, I can brighten this area where it looks like the sun is coming in at this angle, but at the same time, I keep that dark and in focus. So that now we're not as blown out over here with the white. You can see the tents a little better. And at the same time, we can see our soldiers. And that's one of the tricks that we can use to help bring things back and balance out an image. Another thing that happens when you're doing these events is the fact that they're firing weaponry, and those weapons leave a cloud off of them. Now, I know I have an image where they were running and gunning themselves. And here's the image. You can see this fog from the smoke. So let me bring the colors up. That even gets rid of it a little bit. But we can get rid of it even more. Now, you'll notice what it's doing is it's darkening the image. So we balance it out a little bit. And yet we've still lost a lot of that. And yet we can see everybody again. Let me kick this back to what it was originally. Because if I come out of here, I've already made the change. And you can see a before and after. So the greens look better, the colors look brighter, and at the same time, we've gotten most of that cloud taken away, so it's not quite as eye-catching in the image. We could use the same trick we used before, darken this area here, we could brighten the area back there. But the goal is to highlight the reenactors. They spend a lot of time doing the work, and it's good to make sure that they are seen. Just like when I'm doing bodybuilders, I want them to be seen. The same thing happens here. One of the major differences is the fact that when I'm doing an event, I may be limited as to where I can be in the scene. Obviously, they're firing guns. They don't want people close to them while they're doing it, which means using telephoto lenses, maybe having to bring things down a little bit. That is cropping after the effect. Take, for example, this image. While that was as close as I could get with the lens that I had at the time, I could have used the 300, but I was using the 45 megapixel camera as opposed to the 20. So instead of the 60D, I was using the R5. But look at the detail that's available to the image, even at that point. Now, this had the cinema effect added to it, but you can see the fire coming out of the muzzle, and you can see the flash at the ignition point over here on this weapon. So while I wanted to get a good image from a distance, which I did, once I saw that muzzle flash, I needed to bring it in and enhance the detail. So that's what I have for you guys this time. Again, this week, there'll be a video on what depth of field is and how it relates to the F numbers on those lenses, what those F numbers actually mean on their lenses, why some lenses have things like you saw with my lens here, where it was a range on the F. It's not just the F itself. It's a 24 to 105 millimeter lens, f4 to 7.1. So we'll talk about that in the in just what the F is that episode, and then next weekend or on Friday night we'll go over retouching images, but in a different venue this time. We're not going to be changing the images so much as we're going to be enhancing the colors more than anything else. And before we drop off tonight, I wanted to point out the fact that all lenses have a distortion that they make, some more than others. So you'll notice this changes very little between the two. The lens manufacturers give Adobe, in this case it's Lightroom, the images of what the changes are, what the distortions are. Now, what I have seen happen is I have seen photographers distort the images in such a way that it changes the shape of the body. If you've seen any of my work, I don't believe that we should change the shape of a person's body. It's their body. When it comes to the body itself, other than doing the retouching to make sure that the definition is highlighted, I might remove a transient blemish on the person. For example, if they had a spray tan and they had a bad section to it, we might touch that up a little bit. So little blemishes like that, nothing that defines what the person is, and never changing the body shape. There's some photographers who think that their images should reflect their view of what they think a human being should look like. And that's where a lot of the issues came in years ago, well, not that far ago, with magazine covers, where they were actually taking the beautiful subject that they had and modifying them in some way to match what they thought a person should look like, rather than just being happy and enhancing what they had before them. So I hope this gives you guys a glimpse into the type of work that I do and why I do what I do. I want to try to not only convey that, but as we go forward, I want to continue to give education, information on how to make sure that bodybuilders and other people who really dedicate their time to something and take a great amount of care in what they do, how you can go through and capture an image of them in such a way that it shows off all of the detail and their care that they've taken, and celebrates them and what they do. That's it for tonight. I'll see you guys next week.